All right, this is the review for quiz number 9, and we've probably mostly been referencing film up until now, with sort of how it also applies to television. This is a little bit more geared toward television, maybe YouTube, but an interview type setup where you've got two people speaking to each other. And the first question is about, does this all need to take place at the same time? And the answer is no, it does not. You can do interviews at different times. I'm thinking a little bit of The Daily Show, how they'll do that. It looks like they only send one camera out with their person when they go and interview somebody in their office that says silly things. And so they film those responses, and then, right, at a different time, they cut back to the other angle, and they film asking the questions and their reaction shots, right? And so they may not be making that silly face exactly as someone says their silly answers, or that also leaves them open to the criticism that maybe you really asked this question and they answered that while you cut in a different question, right? And thus comedy ensues. But yeah, it doesn't need to all take place at the same time. After saying that, though, a lot of the times it is most cost-effective and best for everything to happen all at the same time. Just do it once and have it and do more of the work in the editing room than in reshooting. So the setup that we talked about in class had 3 cameras and 4 lights. And it's a little bit of a culmination of a lot of the things that we've talked about already, right? Because we have one camera that's set up for the 2-shot, and then 2 other cameras facing each over one shoulder at the one subject, over the other shoulder at the other subject. But now that I think of that, also obeying the 180-degree rule. They're all on one side of that, so it keeps it oriented for the viewers. And then the lighting is a variation on that 3-point lighting that we talked about at the very beginning, except we've got 4 lights. And that leads into the next question, right? So each person is going to have a backlight, and I guess that's going to be the easy one, right? You got backlight for person number 1, backlight for person number 2. But each person is going to have a key light, the main light that's focused on them. In the 3-point lighting, they have a key light and a fill light. Now what they do is you position the key lights for person number 1, so it's the fill light for person number 2, and versa versa, right? The key light for person number 2 is the fill light for person number 1. Okay, and so having that 3-camera setup with the 4 lights is advantageous because it's going to save time and we don't need to do any retakes. You don't have to move the camera over here and ask the question again, or move the camera over there and get their answer, or do all those things, right? You've got all 3 of those shots. You can cut between those 3 things as the interview goes on, and you only have to do it once. I guess I think about this a lot of times too when actors are promoting their movies. Have you seen this where they're sitting, it looks like they're in a black room and it's got the poster for the movie, and then there's a journalist, reporter sitting across from them asking questions. This is all because they're getting these done fast. Right? That person has 10 or 15 minutes to ask these questions, and then they cycle them out and they bring in the next person, and the actors just stay in those chairs and they answer the same questions over and over again. Okay. Now the bad part about that, the disadvantages of using that multi-camera setup, as you might have already started thinking about for yourselves, is that it's going to take more time to set up, right? It's going to take more money to buy the equipment, because if my math is correct, 3 cameras cost more than 1 camera. And then the synchronization issues are also a little more difficult, right? You have to make sure that they're all lined up as you're cutting from one to the other, that you don't lose synchronization. All right, thank you very much. That was quiz number 9.